JJ Hardy is a leadership trainer and coach from Amana, Iowa. Now, get this, he's an Army veteran who, during his 18-year span in service, had the opportunity to learn highly valuable leadership skills from leaders across the globe. He's been a leader of warfighters in multiple different countries, so he knows what it means to lead under fire. So he's been married since 2006, and together, him and his wife have two wonderful children. JJ recently published an online course that teaches the basics of leadership. It's called the First Time Leaders course. And he also has an ebook about why organizations should develop their leaders. JJ says, I truly believe that leaders without education create bad habits. JJ, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to be a good time.
I surely agree. It's always a good time with you. So let's go ahead and just dive straight in, my brother.
Okay.
From a leadership perspective, why is human connection important?
Well, human connection. So, leadership is all about creating connection. And honestly, it's about creating influence. So, the military kind of puts that into an equation where you have purpose, direction, and motivation. So, if you help people understand why they are doing what they're doing, and you have constant conversations about those things, and you always give them feedback, and you continue to help them feel wanted in the workplace, and that's what I'm focusing on, is in the workplace, even though this applies everywhere. Then you truly create influence because they're going to want to follow you.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, like you said, they're going to want to follow you. It's like that's a leader has to create people that want to follow. And so, I'm curious, like, from that perspective, like, how do you get people to follow?
Honestly, I'm just my true and authentic self, and I constantly ask people how they are and what they need help with on a regular basis. And this is my experience in management, of course, and in other platforms that I'm on, including with your regular conversations that we have in the professional connection. I do the same thing. I go out there and I'm my true and authentic self, because honestly, people can sniff it out when you're not being that. And so if you're just being fake, they're going to treat you like you're fake, and you're not really going to be able to get any influence or anything like that. You're going to be more of a pain in the butt than you are somebody that they want to come to work and talk to every day.
So, I'm curious, like, you started out as a leader young. I mean, because I know how the military works, man. I was I was a Marine for a short time, 4 years, um, and they make leaders and they make them young. And I'm curious, like what that was like at an early age, taking on such an important role. And you know, surely you weren't just like hot off the press like a great leader. So what was that experience like?
No, not at all. I think that's a big ask for just about anybody. So I started off, honestly, though I served for 18 years, my first leadership position was in 2007. Well, sorry, that's when I got promoted into embody what that meant. So I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I was actually threatened once because I was not confident enough. I didn't project when I talked. Uh, I just kind of hawed around, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was really, really good at my jobs, which, by the way, is what a lot of people make the mistake of doing, is they promote people into a job that because they're really, really good, or sorry, in a leadership position, because they're really good at the job, and now they want them to be in charge of it. Well, it's kind of the reason I made the course and started the company, is because if you don't have the base fundamentals of how to take that next step and lead people, then it turns out to be a pretty hairy situation, and you
Hmm.
create bad habits. So that's kind of how I came up with that saying.
So when you think back to young JJ, right? First time leader, I know that's like a big thing for you, is like helping first time leaders. When you think about you as a first time leader, do you remember or recall like any particular person in your charge who like helped you develop into a better leader? And how did that happen? Like what did you have to go through mentally to flip that script from being a maybe a a first time leader to a good one?
Well, the saying, "You either figure this out or you're going to get fired," came to mind. But comes to mind, but that really was kind of what he said. But he was really the nicest guy in the world, and he still is. I haven't talked to him in a while, but his name was, I might as well just go ahead and say it. His name was Sergeant First Class Caruso. He was the very first person I worked for when I got promoted into that leadership position, and he basically said, you're going to get fired if you don't figure this out, but I'm going to show you the way. And so he actually had me shadow him to go to all the big boy meetings and all that other stuff. And then he had me follow him into the motor pool, and he came and talked to my team. And then we would literally do what's called an after action review. So a quick talk about how those interactions went in each situation, so that moving forward, I didn't just see what he did and I was expected to emulate him, but you know, he explained why he did everything so that I could create my own way.
I like that, so that you could create your own way. I like that a lot, actually. Um, so you learned essentially just by started off with the threat, right? But you quickly learned by
A little
shadowing
bit
him
death.
and watching. Yeah, yeah, of course, it's all in fun, right? Um, but and let's be real, the best leaders are the ones who are firm and fair, right? Like,
Yes.
let's call it what it is. I mean, the people that I admire the most are the ones who were the hardest on me. I remember, gosh, I've been there before, dude. Like, back when I managed gyms. I remember having a really tough conversation with somebody I really looked up to, and to this day I still do. But I remember it was kind of a similar thing. It was like, you know, it was a hard conversation, and it didn't change the way that I saw him. It made me want to step up.
Yep.
And I think some people, do you see this maybe sometimes, like, where, being a leadership coach, you probably have to teach people how to have those kind of hard conversations anyway.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not
As a
it's
matter of
not a
fact,
it's not a Go ahead.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, buddy. Oh, okay. So I mean, yes. And honestly, the reason that he would say that, and if you're a business owner, especially is, since that's most of your audience, I'm going to go ahead and say that those difficult conversations are the one that need to be had because you can't afford not to have them. If you don't have those conversations, people are never going to improve. Two, I should keep with my theme here. So since the first one I said was A, so B, don't if you don't tell somebody when they're screwing up, they're going to keep creating those bad habits. So yeah, there's growth, but there's also awareness. And so in addition to that, the whole idea behind becoming a leader is that you develop a mentality of servitude. So honestly, you owe it to these people to say the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And that
Because
can be hard to say the ugly, right? It can be really hard to address things like that. But what happens is it does kind of turn into a snowball where, you see it everywhere. You see it in relationships and businesses everywhere you go. If you let things kind of eat at you and you don't address them, they get worse. And so realistically, I try to look at firm leadership as an act of love. There's really nothing more loving that somebody can do than to get uncomfortable and have that difficult conversation and say, hey man, you aren't living up to this expectation right now. Or you might say it differently, but you get the point. But I really do believe that those difficult things are the best, and that's really, I think, it makes a better leader. I think it makes a better partner. I think all around it tends to help. But tell me this, man, like, why do people shy away from that?
well, they don't, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, if shy away from having difficult
From
conversations
having those difficult conversations, yeah.
because it's hard. People do not like to feel uncomfortable. And when you feel uncomfortable, what's the first thing that a lot of people do until they're urged to go in a specific direction? They push what I like to call the easy button, and they just shy away from it and they keep moving on, as if the conversation they needed to have was never even a thing. And you can't do that because it shows weakness on your part. You know, how are you ever going to help anybody get better or understand what they're doing, good, bad, right, or wrong, if you don't talk to them about it?
It's interesting how like emotions can get involved though, even though, it is business, but we do get emotional as leaders, as followers, whatever you may be. And one thing that I even like, I even think about a conversation I recently had with my partner. I had to bring something up that bothered me just a couple days ago, and so I brought it up. It was like awkward, but I felt like, hey, if we address this, then we can, keep moving forward. And so it was awkward for about 30 seconds after we talked about it, and then I was like, hey, hold on. I brought that up to help us grow closer, not it's not a bad thing. And I believe, one thing I've observed is like when you go into any leadership conversation, really, people like newer leaders, maybe, especially, feel like difficult conversations equate to bad conversations, and even
Yes.
in relationships. So like for me, I have to kind of reframe my mind and say, hey, that was a kind of a difficult thing to bring up, but it's not a bad conversation. It's a conversation that can bring us together. Do you see the same thing happen? And like when you work with like first time leaders?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I can take it one step further. So, because they're already in that heightened state when they go into the conversation, they you have to teach emotional intelligence too, because that's part of my course, but it's also part of what a lot of people are never talked to about it, and that's that remaining calm in the storm. So, say you say something to somebody and you're already like this, because you were so nervous to have that conversation. Well, if somebody comes back to you and they're upset about what you said, how do you
Mm,
internally count to 10 and keep it down? Because if you raise up to their level, it's going to immediately turn into an argument. But if you're able to remain calm and let them vent their frustrations, eventually they're going to think about it, and they're going to go, "Whoa, why am I even upset about this?" And they're going to slowly start to chill out. So, yeah, it takes experience to get to that level, but at the same time, you also have to talk about that, and let them know that there is an expectation that they are supposed to remain calm in the storm.
and it goes the same for the leader too, that's showing up to that conversation as well. Like one of the first things you mentioned, when you told me about that, was like when you go into it with heightened senses, you're much easier to sway, so to speak, is kind of what I gathered from it.
Yep.
And that what that makes me think is like you mentioned, like counting to 10, right? Like how do I as a leader make sure that I show up to the conversation more even keeled and professional, so that I'm not the one that's taking this damn thing out of hand, right? like
Yeah.
like I'm the leader. I got to be professional. I need to be composed. And sometimes it's hard, like in the moment, right? Like especially, gosh, dude, JJ, being a military leader, you know better than anybody about heightened senses during leadership.
Yeah.
So like what do you do when you have to say it, and it's got to be said, and it's got to be said a certain way, and it's got to be done right away? Like how can you make that happen without making it an emotional problem?
Well, first of all, it's you. No matter how tense the environment can be, you still have to make it a more comfortable environment. So a lot of times it's pulling away from where you are, because especially if there are other people around, you do not want somebody to you don't want to call somebody out in public, because if you do that, it's going to create an entirely new issue, because they're not even going to be hearing what you say. They're really going to be looking around to see how other people react to it, and then they're just immediately going to either shut down or they're going to be upset. And so part of that is going to a more comfortable environment. And sometimes people aren't even around. You might just need to go to a place that's not loud or whatever, and just create that calm environment so that that conversation doesn't get there.
Hmm.
A
So
lot of it is environment.
no, go ahead.
A lot of it is environment.
Oh, it's a lot of environment. Okay. So like making sure that you're in the right environment. Like don't call them out in public, but instead Hey, JJ, come with me. Let me run this by you. Let's have a quick conversation.
Yep.
One of the first things that you actually brought up on our conversation today was showing up authentically.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that comes up for me is like when somebody says, "Hey," your manager comes to you, "Hey, we need to talk. Hey, come with me. Let's have a conversation." That can be pretty intimidating for somebody. Now, one thing that I've heard you talk about though is maintaining constant and consistent contact. And so, realistically, whether it's a good conversation, bad conversation, or right down the middle, as a leader, you're probably recommending to people like in your courses and training and everything to maintain consistent contact. Hey, how does that look? I guess how do those consistent contacts look?
Well, first of all, a lot of people make the mistake of leading from their office. And you can't do that because if you don't get to know your people, it's going to be a problem. But the consistent contact that I was referring to in the beginning is making sure, say you work in a sales or in a store or something like that, that you're constantly going out and making physical contact with your people. You're going up and talking to them. Hey, how's your day? I know your kid was sick. How's that doing? Do you need any help? Can I provide any additional assistance for you? So those day-to-day interactions are very, very important. Letting them know that you're willing to step outside of your office and talk to them. It humanizes you. In addition to that, there's another expectation that you have to put out there, and that's that once in a while you're going to have a closed door conversation with them to talk about how they're doing, and you're going to be providing them feedback and then coming up with a plan for improvement or whatever. I call it a professional development counseling. And, having those regularly and then maybe even a more formal quarterly and annual counseling to go along with it, it sets consistently. And then you don't just have one off talks with your people, and it's not going to be as difficult for them. Now you have created a system where they know that there's a constant expectation that you're going to be popping in. And it's not going to be a big deal after a while because they just know JJ is going to be around, or they know Jeric's going to rear his ugly head every once in a while and say, "What's going on?"
Yeah, you're in the weeds. Their personal stuff. 'Cause I heard you say that like how's the family? Is your kid still sick? Are they feeling better? Like, so what we're doing on these when we put ourselves out there is we're really just collecting data that we can just check back in on, right?
Yep. Well, and an additional thing that a lot of managers do is they'll walk up to a person and it's just a random interaction and they'll ask them if they need anything. And then the employee
Mm.
will say that they do. And then that just kind of, I don't know where that comment goes, but it never goes anywhere. It goes in one ear and out the manager's other ear. So if you ask for help and then they say that they need something, you address it. You either let them know that it can or cannot be done. And then if you can assist with that in the moment, then you do it.
But you give plenty of opportunities to essentially give to the relationship, huh? Um,
You definitely do not let it go in one ear and out the other.
right. One thing that a leader that I worked with who has had a profound impact on my leadership told me, and it's from a book, and I don't know what the book is, but it was Cameron Duff that told me this. He said you have to make emotional deposits, and you might know the book, emotional deposits, many of them, before you take an emotional withdrawal, and that had a huge effect on how I led, but also, now that I'm marketing coach, sales coach, I do that same exact thing, and I actually teach the same exact thing. And I know you're practicing it too. We
Yes.
don't just we don't just get slide into the DMs and say, "Hey, do you want to buy my thing?" No, we
No.
invest in the relationship. We don't just show up at home and say, "Hey, you want to take this to the other room?" No, we invest in the relationship. Right? Like it applies to leadership, relationships, marketing, sales. You have to make it, you have to give, and you really have to earn the right to. ask, in my opinion. And that's, I think, like one thing, uh, you know, I think about being a leadership. I think that's probably for me one of the most important things.
I agree. I agree. As a matter of fact, it's the most important thing. I don't talk about the emotional deposits nearly enough, but I do talk about how it's important to develop a mentality of servitude so that when you approach a situation, you're not thinking, what can I gain out of this? Me, 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 me. No, I'm flowing into the other person that I'm talking to so that I can make sure that no matter what they say, I figure out how I can help them in that moment. And I don't ever expect anything in return, actually, unless, of course, they are assigned to a specific job. I always expect that that's going to get done because that's what they're getting paid for. But, other than that, I don't just like walking up to people and saying, you do this, you do this, you do this. No, I like to make most things a conversation unless it's sometimes it's necessary to say, hey, you get back over there and get to work. But I don't like doing that.
Right. And you really, yeah, exactly. And those things might come up, but the idea is at least you've given enough to the relationship that you've probably earned the right to direct occasionally, right, so to speak.
Yes. The cell phone is what gets most people in trouble. We're talking about human
Mm.
connection right now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with me, bud. Stop staring at that little screen that you have right in front of you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, you want to make a connection, just make a real face-to-face connection.
yep.
Hey, I'm curious. You focus on helping first-time leaders. Why?
Well, that's not all I'm going to be focusing on. That's where I'm starting. So I
Mhm.
believe that every leader should have a proper foundation so that they understand what they should be learning and developing as they move forward with their journey. So I'm starting my first course that I released was the first time leaders course, and that's specifically because I feel like everything that they do from that point forward, I wish I would have had this immediately. It took me I deployed right after I was appointed in my first leadership position, like 3 months later. And so I didn't get my first formal leadership development training until after I went to combat as a leader. So,
Oh, oh wow.
so, honestly, a lot of people never receive any formal guidance. They, if they're lucky, they have a mentor or somebody in the workplace that can help guide them in the right direction, but that doesn't always happen either. So oftentimes people are left to figure it out. And when you do it on your own, we all know what that's like. That you're a coach and I'm a coach. It takes a lot longer to figure things out. And sometimes you develop habits that steer you in the opposite direction unless you build a solid foundation and you understand where to begin.
Yeah, trying to figure things out yourself, it takes way too long. One thing that I tell my people when I bring people onto my team is, the best fit for me is somebody who's been struggling for less than 3 months. Because somebody that's been struggling for less than 3 months or for more than 3 months, like with their sales and marketing, well, they tend to have created a pattern at that point.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Yeah.
now they're kind of like used to that pattern and they want to keep going in that direction. There's a reason that they've been struggling for so long. And it's like, yeah, if you can be the person to throw the life raft out to them and save them, then that's wonderful. And hopefully they'll latch onto it. But sometimes they don't. It takes a certain level of initiative and strength to bring somebody on, but it does help you elevate you to a level you might have never reached,
Yep.
when you work with an expert mentor or whatever have you.
Yep. I agree. And I to that point, I do say leaders without education create bad habits, but anything you do, if you don't start off in the right way, you're gonna have a lot more difficult time, and you're gonna. That's why we call it bad habits, right? Because once you develop that, it's muscle memory. When you become in a stressful situation and you don't know what else to do, you're gonna divert to your habits. If you don't have the correct habits in the very beginning, then what you divert to when you don't know what else to do is probably going to put you either deeper in the hole or it's going to keep you at a standstill.
I feel like anybody could go through a first time leaders course, any leader, even if they've been leading for 5 years, right? Like, because those fundamentals, frankly, are a good reminder. Like, one thing
Yeah.
that my uncle taught me, Randy Sorrell, amazing person. One thing that he taught me, because he owned a business for many years before selling it and retiring. Um, and so he had a ton of experience in business and leadership, management, all the above. But one of the things that he told me was, he says, coaching and leadership is more about reminders than teaching a lot of the time.
Yeah. Communication, caring about others more than your own, thoughts and needs. In addition to that, uh, when it comes to effective communication, I think the most important thing I could ever teach anybody, and we use this in business all the time. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Stephen Covey. He wrote a book called The 7 Habits of
Hmm.
Highly Effective People. He
Yeah.
said something very important in that book, and he said that you have to seek to understand and then to be understood. So how does that relate to
Mm.
marketing? How does that relate to leadership? Well, when you're having a conversation with somebody, if you just dive wide right into what you want, or if they're talking and you're just waiting to pounce with what you have in the back of your mind, you're not really listening to what they're saying. Slow down, listen to what they're saying, and respond to what they're saying before you say what's weighing on your mind that's probably not nearly as important as listening to that person anyway.
I feel like so many people need to hear that. Like, listen to what the person is saying, like active listening. I
Active
mean,
listening.
wow. How simple yet profound of an impact can active listening truly have?
That's one of the first rules that they teach us to follow in counseling. And it's
Mm.
that way for a reason. It's not, you learn very quickly that it's not just that way. It's not just part of the steps in counseling another person. It's part of the steps in communicating with another person. You're not going to get anywhere if everybody thinks that you are just about you. So listen to everything that people are saying and respond to that. And then, we just said it, but yes.
Yeah. If all you do is just take like a piece of something somebody said and just kind of reiterate it back to them before leading into the next thing, I feel like that right there is a big start, like
Yep.
making sure that you stay on, like, that's like, I look at communication as a ball of string. Okay. And like, when you say something, your statement, your paragraph, whatever you say, you're putting out a string out there, and I can grab onto that string and I can keep pulling on that string, and keeping it, essentially what I'm saying is like keeping it on topic. I'm not grabbing a different ball. When you talk about first time leaders, I don't say, "Oh, okay, what about this completely different thing?" I'm not
Hey,
in
did
my
you
head
see my
like
line
over
in the
here.
background?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
but
agree. Go
but
ahead.
but
Sorry.
it's like, pull on that string. Allow the conversation to continue unfolding. Allow the energy and the flow to continue moving in the direction that the person on the other end is creating. And I feel like if you allow that, um, I think you can find yourself in great conversations. People are going to feel heard around you, and you're going to be a powerful leader. It's going to be tremendous for your sales. So, I teach it in my courses and in our groups and all the different places. I always talk about, or at least I try to remind people, like, hey, remember, it's about them. Let it be about them, and allow the conversation to flow. Keep it on point.
Yep. Yep. I agree. So what else you want to
Yeah.
talk about, man? I'm excited. You brought up all kinds of cool stuff.
It's a good time, right?
Yes, it is.
It's always fun hanging with you.
Well, for
Um,
sure. And thank you for bringing me onto your podcast. I think this is great. And I think what you're doing is great. I can't wait to see how future episodes go as well, and not just this one.
Oh yeah, they're lining up. They're lining up. So just wait, they're coming. Um, your message for a first time leader. What's like if you could give one message? And the way I kind of put it sometimes is like if I gave you a billboard to put up, what would you have put on that billboard for everybody to see?
Well, let me see. I think I would probably put on there leadership. It's not about you, it's about those you serve.
I like that. Ain't that a fact?
Yep.
Huh, yeah. Good. Well, so I put on the screen your website. Let me see. There it is.
Yep.
victoryleadershipcoaching.com.
And there is a
Is that the best
www
place to
there.
go to?
Yep.
Yeah, there should be, shouldn't there?
It's okay. Hey, I just don't. I want to make sure that anybody who's watching this right now actually clicks that www first.
There you go. Is there anywhere else that people can go besides that to learn who you are?
Yes. So I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, which is probably where most people will see this, and on YouTube, I'm sure. Uh, I'm becoming more active on YouTube because I'm also going to be doing a podcast. So I'll be doing the video there, and then it'll be streamed to uh, many places. And then my one of my favorite social media outlets right now is Alignable. I love it because conversations like this, you have 7 minute chats. But anyway, go if you type in hashtag veteran leader trainer, it'll also come up with all of my stuff. Everything I
Hmm.
post, I have that in there. So if you and before I started my business, that didn't even exist. So I kind of created it on my own. So hashtag veteran leader trainer. If you type that in on Google or Bing or whatever, it will come up with my stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That
Huh.
was a trick I
Yeah.
learned from another old veteran that specialized in Google. He said, find something that nobody else is using and just take it. It doesn't cost you anything.
I love that. Okay, so you've got, as far as like what you offer, you've got your first time leaders course.
Yes.
You've tell me a little bit about more about like specifically how you're helping leaders, what offers you have.
So I'm going to be creating more courses. I'm creating one in decentralized leadership right now. I'm creating a no like trust course. That's going to be a fun one. More to follow with that later on. You'll see if you go start following me on any of my social media channels. And really, what I'm trying to do, and I'm just going to be blunt because I feel like that's just kind of how I am. I feel like if I can get as many people as possible to take my courses, someone's going to say, hey, look, I'm taking this seriously. It's time to move on to that high ticket offer. And I want you to help me with something in my professional life. So really the upsell for all of those courses is the coaching. Now I also offer uh, I'll do any of these trainings in person as well. And I'd be happy to be a guest speaker at an event, but the primary things are my online courses and the coaching for implementation.
I think it's good also to give people a taste of like who is JJ, right? And they can, in your other programs, in your lower ticket stuff. I think it's always good to put people through that, and then I think that builds the trust factor, so that when they are ready to step up, they're really ready to step up, and they've not only proven themselves to you, but you've also proven yourself to them.
True. And I will be putting just free videos on my website as well that you can just watch them. That you don't necessarily have to purchase anything, and they will be lessons. I'm going to be I'm going to be defining leadership development, and I'm going to be doing a couple other free ones as well. In addition to that, I'm doing a webinar next Thursday, and I'm going to record that and put that up for free on my website as well. That way, anybody, if they want to learn in about 30 to 40 minutes, uh, what I'm trying to do outside of watching your podcast, obviously, then they can go to that and just watch a video if you have the patience to watch a
There we
30-minute
go.
video.
Right. Hey, you know what? I'll throw YouTube on or Spotify on. I'll do it on a drive or when I'm doing dishes. Like those are when I get my long form stuff in. If I'm just chilling, a lot of the time I'm gonna watch some of the shorter form stuff. So it's good to have the long form stuff because you can dive a little deeper into everything and really square people away. So I dig it. Um,
Yep.
JJ, you're a longtime member of the Elite Network, and I put the link down below. But you've been somebody who you got into the Elite Network, and you soaked it up. You really put it to work. You put it into action. You made relationships, and it's really been awesome to have you, as a real majorly integral part of the Elite Network. And I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be part of it. I know you're very selective with who you bring into those live calls. And so I just appreciate that you're willing to let me continue to be a part of that every week.
Man, I don't know what it would be like without you.
Well, thank you.
I think
I think,
it's important to
well,
have a net. Mhm.
well, I just want to say, and I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to put a plug on there for the Elite Network. If anybody at all is having a problem navigating the social media space, especially as it relates to their marketing for their business, I think that it's a great place to go. And even if you're just a business person that would like a group of like-minded, growth-minded people every week on a call to chat with and learn from, I think the Elite Network is the place for that because you've really built a good platform, and the people you've let in there, we're honest with each other, and not only are we honest with each other, but usually you can find an answer to a problem or some sort of a solution to a problem while we're having conversations, even though we goof around a little bit. But that's part of it.
That's part of the fun, right? That's part of, redefining what it means to network. And that's what we're
Yes.
trying to do there. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, anybody who needs a network of people who wants to learn, definitely go get your free pass, jericsorrell.com/the elite network. Yeah, I'm sitting here with JJ Hardy. He's a leadership trainer and coach. And like I was saying, he's been in the my network for a long time. He's really proven himself. 18-year military veteran. I can't say not just a veteran, but retiree. I can't really say enough amazing things about you, JJ. It's really an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have you in my network. You're impacting a lot of lives. Not only mine, not only the people that are involved, but but I know that you're impacting lives everywhere that you go. So guys, if you're listening and you like what JJ has to say and that resonates with you, I urge you to go and check out his website, check out his social pages, see what JJ is all about. Type that veteran leader, hashtag veteran leader trainer into your socials because I'm telling you, it's one thing to be a leader, it's a whole different thing to be a military leader. And if you can learn from somebody like that, then it is going to give you air beneath your wings and you will soar as a leader. JJ, it's been really cool. It always is really cool to hang out with you. Any
Pleasure's mine,
last
buddy.
words before we hop off here?
Uh, Other than to say thank you as well for bringing me in and allowing me to be your first guest on your podcast. It's truly a blessing to serve you and your team over at the Elite Network as well. So uh, that's really all I have to say. Thank you, and I hope everybody listening reaches out to me because I'd love to get to know you.
All right. Well, there we have it, everybody. Mr. JJ Hardy. His name on social media is also Jeremiah Hardy. Just a heads up, that's his alias. Um, he has to go by JJ to fly under the radar. No, I'm just kidding. But
Really,
anyway,
it's the other
good
way
to have you
around.
here, brother.